This week, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency rolled out a new plan to cut carbon emissions by 30% by the year 2030. Environmentalists and many Democrats praised the executive order by President Obama, but Republicans predicted more job losses and increased energy costs. I interviewed Senator Tom Udall before this announcement, but we talked at length about the impacts of climate change in New Mexico and his support for reducing emissions. Mr. Udall issued a statement this week calling Obama's proposal an opportunity to spur innovation and job creation and tap what New Mexico does well, such as solar, wind, and biofuels. Senator, just a simple question right up top. The debate over climate change, is it over in your mind? Do you believe it's caused by man-made efforts?
I think the science, Gene, is very solid. I think we are seeing on the ground right here in New Mexico concrete evidence. And so I really think the debate's over, and I think the interesting thing to watch is within all the political arena, we're starting to see fewer and fewer deniers, that are the outright deniers, and people coming out with different positions. I mean, they may say it's too late, but they're acknowledging it's happening. They're acknowledging that human beings have played a big role in this since the Industrial Revolution and the carbon pollution that's occurred.
Yeah. Have you said on the floor, have you said right on the Senate floor that you do believe it's caused by man-made efforts?
Well, let me talk just a minute about what we did. We were becoming frustrated with our friends on the other side of the aisle, the Republicans. And so we said, well, how do we really engage in a thoughtful way? So 30 of us decided to come to the floor of the Senate and do an all-nighter. You know, we didn't want, Harry Reid has specific things he's doing during the week, but we said at the end of the day, we're going to go. We went for 15 hours, 30 U.S. senators showed up, and we talked, why did we think that was going to engage the other side? Because the tradition in the Senate is if a Democrat speaks, a Republican gets to speak, and it's back and forth. It's a debate. It's always a debate. We only, in 15 hours, with 30 senators showing up, we only had one Republican show up. And that was James Inhofe, who, as you know, is the senator from Oklahoma who has said that this is a hoax and he really doubts the science. We didn't have anybody else show up. So we're trying to continue to think of ways that we can engage and pull people out, because the only way, in my mind, to do something about this legislatively is to do it in a bipartisan way. I mean, you see with many things that get passed, and where only one side passes them, doesn't matter which side, they get eroded and sometimes repealed very quickly. And I come from a tradition, as you know, my father and uncle on environmental issues, on conservation issues, were totally bipartisan. I mean, the big laws we have on the books that are used now to clamp down on global warming and climate change are the ones that came out of the 60s and 70s in large bipartisan margins. Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, wilderness, endangered species. All of these were laws where both sides stepped up and said, we got a problem. Let's put some legislation in place to move us forward.
Is that a possibility in this climate today? I hear your point. I was thinking about this. You think about the Great Society stuff. You know, we forget Senator he had 68 Democrats in the Senate at the time.
That's right.
It's a big help, you know what I mean? That's not possible for President Obama now.
That's true.
It's just not possible. So what can we do in this climate, political climate on climate change? Is anything doable at this point, even if you're hearing silence from Republicans at this point?
Well, there are a number of things that have been done just since I came into the Senate. First, let's start with the Recovery Act. We invested $85 billion in renewable energy. And that ended up in loan guarantees and many other kinds of projects that would allow companies to move forward, to experiment and work in this area of renewable energy. That's the biggest investment in renewable energy in our history. We moved very aggressively on mileage standards. President Obama went outside even that aggressive effort and had an agreement with the auto companies and said, doggone, we're going to pull everybody together, and he's got it up to 54 miles per gallon. And all the auto companies, the big three anyway, are focused in and ready to go on that, and are saying we're going to meet that goal. That saves a lot of fuel. Fuel you don't burn keeps the carbon pollution down. So you had that happen. Then the president promulgated some rules. There's rules on mercury. You know, many of our streams we can't fish in New Mexico because the fish are polluted with mercury. And so the controls that you put on there, the visibility controls are out there. And then in addition, the administration through the Environmental Protection Agency is moving forward on power plants. The biggest contributor of greenhouse gases are these power plants. 40% of the emissions come from the power plants. And so they've got to clean up their act. And he is putting in place a regulatory effort to say, they haven't revealed exactly what it is, but my guess is it'll be well thought out, and what it's going to do is put the burden on them to try to clean up the carbon pollution and move to more sustainable energy.
You know, what you're talking about there is behavior change, which is interesting. There's consumer behavior change, we'll get to that in a second, but there's industry behavior change. And there's incentives, there's disincentives, of course, and money. But things haven't seemed to really start pushing forward on the industry side of behavior. Is it in fact possible that the consumer side is where the gold is, so to speak, for behavior change as opposed to industry? And if so, what do we need to do as consumers to change our behavior?
Well, let me jump back and say, you know, from the start, when I started in the Senate, I think there was a high awareness, but I think we've seen an increasing level of consumer engagement in this whole issue. We're number 4 in the country in terms of solar. I'm running into people all the time putting solar on their business, solar on their home, trying to shop in such a way that they lessen their carbon footprint. And your initial question, the one other thing, Gene, I'd like to go back to, the states, when you have this kind of deadlock, we've seen a lot of things happen. The president can act. Now, if we don't stand up on those regulations, those could be repealed. But I think we've had a couple of votes so far, and I think from what we've seen at this point, we like him moving forward on this, and we're going to have to see how that moves out and how the public support is. But the other beauty in our democracy of a federal system where you have the states able to act, 30 states have renewable electricity standards. And so they have said to their power companies, we want you to start on renewable electricity standards and start at a level of, say, 10%, and over time move to 15 and 20. California is now going to 30%. And so their own power companies within their states are saying, clean up your act, get on top of this carbon pollution. And so once again, people should look at everything that's happening, like you're talking about, the consumers on the one hand, what the states are doing, what the federal government's trying to do, and what we've already done since 2008. And there's going to be more to do, I think. And part of it, you sounded a little bit doubtful in terms of us working together. I think we just need to get up every day. What I do every day, I listen to the other guys, I listen to them make the speeches, and I say, and we're in committees, we're with each other. Who are the ones that are thoughtful about this, and then approach them and visit with them and try to move it along. So I get up every morning trying to figure out who are the people I can work with to build that bipartisanship, and that's what we need every senator doing.
Sure. The last couple of weeks there's been some significant things out there in the news to put climate change really out there. One, of course, is the Antarctic ice shelf. It's amazing how that's gone around the world. People just seem to get what's going on there. But then the other part of it is, too, the White House report on climate change a few weeks ago as well. Very, very, very detailed. I took it as a very frightening report when I think about New Mexico specifically, because it broke out sections of the country. The Southeast is going to have their problems with flooding, but we have a whole other deal here. It's almost ground zero for drought as it stands now. And the vulnerability in the environment, environmentalists are concerned, farmers, dairy farmers, everyone is vulnerable at this point, it seems to me, Senator. Is there something we could be doing differently here in the state of New Mexico, in your view, to get ahead of the curve on climate change? Because feed prices can't keep climbing. Nobody can afford that. Food prices can't keep climbing. It's difficult. In your view, anything we could be doing better here in the state?
Well, first of all, let's acknowledge that we are in the bullseye.
Right.
With the computer modeling and the predictions from those major reports, New Mexico is, or as you say, ground zero when it comes to the warming side, the drought side, the dryness side. And the way I try to visualize this and tell people is imagine New Mexico being, if you could, you know how you, with your mouse, you click on something and can drag it? The weather, if we just go business as usual, way down the line, 2075, somewhere in that range, Los Alamos is saying lose all our forests in 2050, but you drag New Mexico 300 miles to the south, you're in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert, most of our state would be, that's the kind of weather you're going to have. And so that's what we need to realize. And the reason I brought this up first before you say what can people do is people need to look around them and see we're getting severe rainstorms. They had so much rain that they had a 500-year flood in Rio Rancho. We're getting catastrophic fires that burn more acreage and mini floods after that. And we read recently how that polluted the Rio Grande. We're getting a number of, just as you mentioned, the cattle herds are down 50% because of the drought. And so then back to your question, what can we do? Well, we're back in the arena again of people working with their local elected officials. The legislature has been trying to weigh in on this. They've passed resolutions telling us to work on this at the federal level. They are encouraging people to go out in their own lives and look at their carbon footprint and try to lessen it. And so this is something that every family needs to think about, and through your life you can see ways to do things differently. And the people that build our buildings need to think differently. One of the things that I've seen around the world, I don't know if you've ever seen this when you've traveled, but if you walk out of a room in a hotel in some other countries in the world, the card you used, you pull it out of the slot and all the energy shuts down. And I've asked people over here, I say, well, why can't we have the same thing so that if you leave your motel room, the lights all shut off rather than you having to go around individually and shut every one. They say, oh, we could do that easily. We have the technology, but we just built this building too quickly. We needed it to be done quickly. So we need to think, each of us, architects, engineers, contractors, people that build homes, and the homeowner themselves, if they move into a place, if they renovate, these are the kinds of things they can do to help out, because it's going to require that kind of effort because it's so pervasive.
It sounds like it's also an effort of leadership as well, if I'm hearing you correctly. We do take our term marching orders, maybe a little stiff, but leaders lead and followers follow. Your own sense of leadership on this. I hear what you're saying about what you're doing in the Senate and such, but when you talk to folks around New Mexico, do you have the ability to really put it to them? Say, look, tell me about your building. How LEED certified is this building? Tell me about your home. What do you do in your home? What are you hearing out there when you use your own leadership abilities out there?
I think what I hear is that people think this is a very serious problem. They want to help with it. They also want leadership at the national level, at the state level, and at the local level. And one of the remarkable things, Gene, is cities and counties have been the most aggressive at putting in place a regimen to reduce their carbon footprint. And so this is something that's out there in a big way. And people don't see how much momentum it's building. There's that old thing they talk about in terms of a tipping point. I think we're really building, and at some point here, it will hit a tipping point, and it's going to be much easier to develop that consensus that we talked about that looks so difficult right now.
Tell me about your leadership on building a sense of urgency as well. I have to imagine in your position, It's hard to be a bell ringer. A lot of folks don't like to have a bell rung. It sounds like panic. It makes people afraid. That's part of the art of politics, though, isn't it? Is that leadership to bring that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely.
So your own sense of bringing urgency, do you struggle with this? Do you feel like you're making people a little too fearful sometimes when you talk in this manner? Or not urgent enough when you consider your own leadership?
I think for me, I know how urgent it is.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to provide the leadership at every level. But I try to listen to people and see what their fears are.
Right.
What is it that they're worried about?
Yeah.
And then try to address that fear. Because many times what they're worried about isn't really something that's going to be that much of a problem if we all just put our heads together and figure out how to do this. And so, for example, people raise the issue, and they've gone overboard on this, that if we put in something to deal with this, that the electricity, I talked about power companies, they're going to say the electricity rates are going to be so expensive that we won't be able to afford power, and that's going to hurt our quality of life.
Sure.
I don't think that's a reality, but it's up to a leader to stand up and take it on and say, this isn't going to happen. We may see some increase, but at the same time, if we do the policy right, we may actually see a rebate back to consumers. I mean, we do this in a lot of areas right now. We help the most vulnerable with their energy costs right now in various programs that the federal government has. And so we can tweak those things and deal with that and make the issue here is making it fair for everybody.
Right.
And that's just tremendously important.
I have a last question for you. I know you're tight on time here a little bit. Water compacts, a big deal for us coming up in the next, call it 20, 25 years. It's going to take a long time to figure this out. Is there a congressional role in figuring out how to deal with our water compacts between states? Texas, we've got our compacts, Colorado certainly, for New Mexico. Because that word vulnerability is out there again when you talk about water compacts. What's the role for our federal government on that?
Well, you can see by the leadership that I've provided. First of all, we went down to New Mexico State. It has this excellent Water Resources Institute. We put on, with the president of the university, a water conference. We had all the former state engineers. We had the biggest thinkers in the state on water. People, all the stakeholders really were there, and we've come out now with a water report that's on our website. We want people to interact, and not only is it a report, it's actual recommendations, what we should do. And now we're trying to gauge with people what they think are the ones that they can live with, that they think will be the most productive, and how they want to move forward. And so I think there's a big role for the federal government to play. I don't think the federal government should supplant what the states do now with the state engineer, the adjudications, the water law. I mean, the history in the West is of growing the water law at the local level. And as John Wesley Powell said, you know, who explored the West, remarkable guy, he said, this is an arid land. We ought to organize around watersheds. And we're doing that more and more now. And so I think it would be a mistake to take national ideas and try to transplant them to a region where we have very specific needs in this region. And we need to urge the national legislature to act with us so that we can fulfill the dreams we have and want to have the opportunities, but also grow in such a way where we're conserving our water and able to continue to grow.
Senator Udall, thank you for coming and spending some time with us on this one. It's a big issue for New Mexico, and please come back when some more on water gets out there. We'd love to talk to you some more. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Good to see you again.